Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Argue with the Wall. It is 2023, which is really weird. Well, technically, I'll be honest, I'm recording this in 2022, but I like to, be professional and stay ahead of schedule. So, therefore, it's technically still 22, but we are in 2023 as we are listening to this. What is going on in 2023? Hopefully I get a fucking job. I graduated college, so hopefully that can that can happen. I can start making money and be a self-sufficient human because I'm tired of relying on my parents, which that sounds bad. I do want to point out I'm very grateful for their help and they allow me to survive in this world. But I hate asking for money. I really do. I don't like relying on people for money, so I'm very excited to not have to do that anymore. What else? I turned 23 this year. That's going to be really weird. No one ever talks about 23. There's just like not much. I don't know. Like, I feel like between 22 is exciting because, if you're a fan of Taylor Swift, like, you have that going for you. And that's like your Taylor Swift year. I think people who are 23, or maybe it's 24, that's like a Miley Cyrus year. I think that's like her number or something. But besides that, I feel like your 20s, there's like not much, going on besides like maybe if you get married. God forbid you have a kid in your 20s. That just feels, hi, old man. I'm going to continue to stare at you as you're staring at me. The cons of filming in front of your window and just talking to your phone, whatever, and living in the basement, technically, the first floor where everyone can see you. Anyways, getting off topic. But besides that, I'm going on vacation. I know I'm going on vacation, going to Disney with my family in 2023. But as of that, besides that, that's about it. And that's all I really know. And with that being said, I think that it is, for fuck's sake, I messed up my camera. Sorry for those who were just listening. This doesn't really apply to you. But for those of you who are watching, I got new glasses that I'm wearing right now. They're my blue light glasses. It's like, are those just for fashion? No. My eyes are incredibly sensitive, and if I look at my phone for too long or my computer or fluorescent lighting, I have to wear them whenever I go into like a grocery store because if not, my vertigo gets really bad. So to sum it up, I'm basically like an old man with vertigo. So there's that. And then wearing my new sweatshirt. I think it's an Aritzia dupe, maybe. I don't really know, but it's brown and it's really soft inside. And if you're listening and watching, I don't know if you can tell, but I got a new microphone. So can I get a whoop whoop for that? And if you can't tell the difference, that's highly unfortunate because I think this is an upgrade. It's also like, if you're not watching, it's a microphone that looks like the microphone you would, see a singer use. It's like a handheld microphone that a stand-up comedian or like someone performing a concert would use, like one of those kind of mics. It's an Audio Technica, I think is what it is. And so hopefully it sounds better. I did a little test and I think it sounds better than the other ones I was using, but if it doesn't, then well, whatever. I like holding this better. I like holding the microphone is what I've found. Even though sometimes I'll like talk with my hands and my hand that's holding the microphone is like all the way out here and you can't even hear it anymore. But I'm rambling. I want to get into today's topic, which is a part of my like mini series that I do, which is a guide to I did a guide to hookup culture earlier, and I've also done like a how to, which was how to not give a fuck. That one did really well, I think, because I feel like everyone just needs to learn how to not give a fuck. So if you haven't listened to those, go do that, please. That'd be awesome. And if you already have, then today's episode is a guide to being a bitch. Um, and this, I got this idea from a book I read, which is Why Men Love Bitches. And it is a fabulous book. It is one of the best books I've like. It's a book that I've read that I have actually taken the advice and what it talked about, and I took it and I like actually digested it, and I apply it to my everyday life now. And it basically, like, the term bitch in this episode and in the book is not someone who is mean, how it's typically used. Like when people call women bitch or bitchy or bitches, it's like they're being rude, mean, nasty, just being a nasty woman. And that's not what I'm getting at here. This guide, a guide to being a bitch, and why men love bitches, is how to not let people, men specifically, walk on you, use you. This is kind of advice on how to be your own person, stand up for yourself, know your worth, and like holding, like, I think the subtitle for the guide to, or the Why Men Love Bitches book, I think the subtitle is like how from going from doormat to dream girl, a guide to a woman, or a woman's guide to holding her own in a relationship. So kind of advice and a guide to being confident in a relationship and in your sex life and in your romantic relationships, so that you essentially have, I don't want to say the upper hand, but it is kind of like that a little bit, where you have a control over how you feel in the relationship and kind of how you get treated. So some key points before we begin. I am not teaching you how to be a cunt. I feel like I kind of brushed over that, but I'm not teaching you how to actually be mean. I'm giving you advice on how to not get walked on, essentially, and not get taken advantage of by men. I'm going to keep saying men in this situation, but honestly, it could go for women, especially if you date women. Or some of this could also be applied to your friendships with women, because you can easily get walked on and taken advantage of in friendships, whether that be men or women. Being a doormat in this conversation represents a woman who tends to be too emotional, too nice, too agreeable, too nurturing, which aren't bad qualities, but at the beginning of a relationship or when dating around, these qualities can definitely make you more susceptible of getting taken advantage of or walked on. Like if you're too nice, people are just going to always know that you're just going to take whatever you're given, because it's just like you don't want to be confrontational. You're so nice that people are just going to walk on you, and you're not going to say anything because in the past you've just put up with it. We're not doing that anymore, okay? It's 2023. We're not doing that anymore. We are going to hold our own. We're going to be confident, and we're not going to let people walk all over us because we're bitches, and I love it. I love being a bitch in this sense. I also love being a bitch in the other senses, but you know what I mean. The key motto: I like you, but I do not need you. Okay? When you're dating someone or you're talking to someone, you're dating around, whatever it may be, you have to keep in mind, I like you, but I do not need you. Because when you get in the mindset of I need you, you become codependent. You start to think that like this person is your lifeline. Without this person, you cannot function. And that is the stem and the origin of where codependency comes from. And codependency is extremely unhealthy. And that's also a segue of how you can lose a lot of your friends. It's a way where you start to rely on your partner for happiness, for motivation, for like your basic emotions. And whenever you start to fall into codependency, and I have in the past, a lot of shit goes wrong. And when you get into that habit, it is, and you later realize in life that you were codependent, those behaviors can travel into future relationships, and it's something that you do need to work on, and that I still continue to work on myself. Another key point before we fully get started, this advice isn't telling you how to change your behavior and your personality to please or get a man. These are ways to like better yourself for yourself that will prevent you from getting hurt and walked on by other people or your partner or just people you're talking to, aka like if you're participating in hookup culture. So this is not me telling you like, hey, you need to start acting this way in order for you to get a boyfriend. That's not the case. This is advice to help you for yourself to protect yourself in future scenarios, essentially. That being said, it's important to remember then that when being a bitch, it's and also participating in hookup culture, you need to remember that physicality is digested both differently for men and women. So for men, having sex does not trigger that like, oh my God, like I think I really like this girl. It sometimes can, obviously, it depends person to person, but men don't use sex as a means to distinguish their emotions. Women, on the other hand, typically they will use sex as a emotional bond to figure out if they like this person. It's just the way, I wish it wasn't, but it's just the way that we are wired. And sometimes I'm just generalizing the human race, but I think women typically, when they have sex, there's a lot of emotional connection in it. So it's pretty common for women to fall in love after having sex with someone, or not maybe fall in love, but develop feelings. It's different for men. They need space and they need time to think and think and think about this person. And that's where kind of like having boundaries comes into play, because if you are talking to a guy and you give him that space and you don't answer so quickly, you're not so available, it gives them time to be like, oh, I wonder what she's doing. I wonder if she's thinking about me right now. Like, did I say something wrong? Why isn't she texting me back? Like, they start to get into their head a little bit. And so whenever you give them that space and you give them that time, that's where they start to develop those feelings typically. Obviously, if, if that's something they're looking for is a relationship or someone that they want to maybe start forming a relationship with. So I think that's all I kind of have for, the key points. Let me just make sure here. Men typically develop feelings through distance and time for them to think. That's why playing hard to get will often make them think about you more, which can lead to emotional development, which is what I just said. And this is also why people don't have sex on the first date, because sex doesn't help men develop an emotional connection. So I broke this up into a couple steps like I typically do with, these kind of videos or podcasts, sorry. Step 1 is confidence and self-evaluation. So evaluate how you value yourself and your confidence levels. I think I kind of talk about this in the like how to not give a fuck video, kind of just like once you are confident in yourself and you're like, I'm good with whatever I do. I don't give a fuck what other people are thinking about me because I know my worth and I'm comfortable with myself. That's kind of, it makes it easier to not give a fuck. In this situation, it makes it easier, like, knowing your confidence levels kind of gauges where you're at in terms of like how confident you are in being self-aware on people, like knowing whether or not this is a good relationship for you, or if it's like dissecting the red flags essentially. In order to know your place in the room you walk into, you have to have a foundation of confidence. Whenever you exude confidence, like it's so true. Like whenever I started to become more confident in myself, and you can see that, like you radiate this confidence, men notice that. People notice that. It like confidence radiates off of you because, and again, there's a difference between confidence and cockiness. This goes for all genders, you know what I mean? So it's like, it doesn't matter what you're looking for. What does matter is having confidence in yourself and trusting your gut will help you not get walked on. Because if you're confident in yourself and you know your worth, then the likelihood you get walked on over, like just taken advantage of essentially, is slim to none. And once you know where you stand, you can determine what you will and won't put up with in your boundaries, which is another step. Thus, we do not settle, okay? I feel like I can't stress this enough. We do not settle. Life is incredibly, incredibly short for us to be settling for people who give us the bare minimum. There are people out there who will give you the maximum, who will exceed your expectations. So there is no reason that we need to just be settling for people who give us the bare minimum, who take advantage of our niceness. We're done doing that, okay? I know, and this is where also my episode on being alone comes into play. Being alone is not a bad thing. Being alone is actually extremely healthy, and it's actually very recommended. By who? I don't know, but it's recommended definitely by me. Being alone and being okay with being alone is crucial to not getting taken advantage of in relationships and even in friendships too. Because if you're okay with yourself and you're okay with being alone and having time away from people, things get so much easier. Okay? Step 2. Say no. Okay? Saying no to people is extremely difficult, especially if you're a people pleaser. I know many people pleasers. I know I used to be a people pleaser, and it's exhausting. Pleasing people is fucking exhausting, and you're never, ever, ever going to be able to do it, okay? And I know it's hard to hear. You're never going to be able to be everyone's cup of tea. And once you come to terms with that, life just, God, it like the feeling I had when I realized, like, no matter what I do, people are going to have something to say about it. People are going to have their opinions. And that's just that. And there's nothing I can do about it. That's out of my control. And it is what it is. So once you realize that, saying no to people becomes a little bit easier. I will admit it's still difficult because, especially for as women, we are very empathetic people. We take into consideration other people's feelings and how our words and our actions are going to hurt other people and how they're going to affect other people. So saying no to someone can be difficult because it's ingrained in society for women to be agreeable, to just say yes, because, we want to be able to make people happy. And that's not a bad thing. I think it's one of the greatest things about women, but it's also one of our deepest flaws is, caring so much about what people think and wanting to please people because we want to make people happy. It's a good great and also horrible thing that we live through. So if once you have your boundaries set, you need to honor these boundaries. I'm trying to think of an example. Like if you do not want to have sex on the first date, you're talking to a guy and you kind of had maybe you had like a spicy conversation whenever you were talking before, you haven't met them yet, but maybe, it's 3 a.m. You're having a little spicy conversation. You had some wine, okay? And you're talking to this guy and it's kind of like, oh, I can't wait to see you on Saturday. Kind of like making not set in stone plans, but kind of like setting the scene for what you're going to do after your date. And you have to reiterate, like, whether it be the next day or when you're at the date, and I know this is uncomfortable, I know it is, but it's going to save you a lot of physical, emotional, and probably spiritual trauma, saying like, hey, I know we had that conversation a couple days ago or yesterday or whatever it was, and you have to be like, I just want to reiterate, like, I don't want you to expect that we're going to do anything. That was kind of just like an in the moment thing. And if he gets pissed, red flag. Okay? If he gets pissed when you say no, red flag. I can't stress this enough. Like, he should respect your boundaries. And if he doesn't, get the fuck out of there. There's no reason he needs to get upset about whenever you say, when you potentially are taking away something he feels like he has earned. Men feel like they are entitled to our bodies for just in general, but especially if you have this conversation the night before and it's like, ooh, this spicy talk, okay? They feel like they are owed that. They buy us dinner, they feel like they are owed sex. And I don't know why that fucking is, and I don't know who told them. I don't know why that's just a thing, but you'd be surprised how many men feel they are entitled to coming home with me or me going home with him just because he bought me a drink or just because he bought me a dinner on a date he asked me to. Okay? It's baffling. If you care about so much about what other people think or how you setting your boundaries will affect other people's feelings, it's going to be near impossible to say no. So that's kind of whatever I was talking about earlier, that if you just keep saying yes, people are going to take advantage of you because they know you're just going to always say yes. And that's going to get you in trouble in many different ways. I think that it's a it's a process. The first time you say no, you're definitely going to have anxiety. It's like, oh my God, how's this? Like, I feel so bad. This person, like, I said no to them and now they're probably pissed at me. So what if they're pissed at you? First of all, if they're pissed at you, that probably means they don't respect you and your boundaries, okay? And that's on them. That's something that you need to reevaluate and be like, is this really my friend? Is this really someone that I love? Is this someone that actually cares about me? Do they actually love me if they're getting pissed at me for setting boundaries and saying no, okay? That's when you need to reevaluate and be like, I don't think this person needs to be in my life. If they're disappointed in you, that's on them. That's on them for not being comfortable and confident in their self. And, like, that's completely on them, okay? You saying no, you setting your boundaries, that's you respecting yourself, and that is completely okay. Now, again, I feel like I need to just keep reiterating this. If you say no and set your boundaries and they get pissed, even if it's something as sorry, I can't stop burping. I don't know what's going on. If you like say no, and even if it's like within your friends and it's something as mundane as like, hey, will you go to the grocery store with me? And you're just like not feeling it. And you have other things going on too, and you say no, and they're like, oh, okay, so you hate me. Like, no, that's a clear indicator of they are, one, insecure, and or two, they're just like that's their own insecurity and anxiety coming out. That has nothing to do with you, okay? real friends and real boyfriends and real girlfriends who people who love you and care about you are not going to exude frustration and anger on you whenever you say no. Okay? And if they are, then fuck them. They do not need to be in your life. Okay? Quality over quantity for everything. And I mean everything. Okay? I'm talking clothes. I'm talking people. I'm talking, I don't know what else. But that's, okay? Remember that. That's the other motto. Quality over quantity. I have not that many friends, and I'm completely okay with it. I would rather have 2 amazing, loyal, trustworthy friends than like 15 like, yeah, they're my friends. It's that easy. It really is. You know, I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but I have a little story for you. How I've been talking about how, women are so agreeable, which I have found in myself and also in other women I know in my life. So I know it to be true. But this story really stuck with me because of how aggravating it was. So I'm hanging out with this guy. And we're like friends, but it's also like maybe a little bit more than friends situation. And we're having wine. We're just like sitting outside. It's great. And he was like, I want to say something, but I don't want you to get mad at me. And first of all, that already is a conversation because men just always think we're going to get pissed, which, we might, especially considering they say stupid shit all the time. I was like, no, you gave me that warning, so I won't get mad. I'll respond calmly. I mean, depending on what you're going to say, but I will not scream at you. He's like, okay. Essentially, what really stuck with me, what he said, was that women don't hold positions of power because they are just agreeable and they don't have as much motivation and perseverance as men do. Now, that sentence is just rooted in misogyny and ignorance. So there's clearly this, misconception. There is a notion that women are agreeable, and we are sometimes because it's just the way we're wired, like I've mentioned before. But there's a misconception that women, oh my God, who is that man? Anywho, there's this notion and misconception that women are too agreeable to hold positions of power. It's like we're offered a job and we just take whatever they offer because, it's like, why would we stand up for ourselves? That's actually that's something clearly at least one man thinks. And I know he's not the only one that thinks that. So we got to break the stigma, ladies. We got to break this misconception that apparently we just can't stand up for ourselves and ask for a raise. And you guys should just I won't even get into how the conversation went, but just know I educated him very much. So hopefully he doesn't think that anymore. It's truly just ignorance and internalized misogyny is what it is. Or just misogyny. Now, learn how to be comfortable with confrontation, especially when setting your boundaries. Once you become comfortable with this, the likelihood of men respecting you increases slightly. For example, men enjoy independent women because they despise dependency. However, if you set your boundary and a man becomes upset, he is not a man, he is a boy. That's all it is. The thing, I was just reading the note that I read. Sorry if that sounded weird, but men don't want to date their moms. And if they do, I don't know what to tell you there. But men don't want to date their moms in terms of they don't want you to constantly be hounding them. And oh, did you do your homework? Did you make dinner? Why didn't you eat dinner? Are you okay? Constantly trying to nag them. I've I feel like no one really wants that, but like I feel like men really don't want that in a girlfriend, and I used to be that way, so I'm allowed to say this. Um, Men enjoy independent women, and women who don't change, and women who, like, I don't know, hold their own. That's what this whole thing is. This isn't me saying like, oh, you need to change yourself to to please a man's expectations. I'm telling you, you need to be independent, because why would you ever want to be dependent on a man? If anyone can think of 10 reasons why you would want to be dependent on a man, 10 valid reasons why you would want to be dependent on a man, let me know. Because if you can think of 10, then I honestly applaud you. But as of right now, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell you that there's no reason you need to be fully dependent on a man. Why would you ever want to be? So if, you know, you're dating this guy and he's dependent on you, would you like that? I guess if you're dependent on him and he's dependent on you, that's just codependency. And I guess that works out for both of you, but not in the long run. That's like worst case scenario. But to sum up, step 2, you're going to hurt some people's feelings. And that's not on you. You can't take that personally. Just as long as you're not being mean and you're doing what's best for you and your safety and your mentality and your emotions and your body, that's okay. Like people will get over it, and if they don't, fuck them. Okay? And it sounds like I treat people as very disposable, but I've just learned that it's like, why would I put up with someone who is going to like not respect me and is emotionally immature when I am emotionally mature? Like, and there's other people out there who are emotionally mature that I would rather spend my energy and effort on. Okay. Now, step 3. I kind of touched on this just maybe a little bit, but being alone and independent is key to being a bitch. Okay. This is where the being alone episode comes in. If you're truly comfortable with yourself and you're confident in yourself and you're comfortable with being alone, you learn to not need anyone. When you learn to not need a man, it's almost like this aura, radiates off of you, where it's like men want what they can't have. First of all, I feel like that needs to be said. So if you are completely comfortable with being alone and you're comfortable with being independent and having your own life and your own interests and your own routine, men, for whatever reason, love that, and they like want more of it whenever it's like you're just not as available. And I've had all my therapists that I've had have told me this, that it's like my old therapist told me this, and it's just like, looking back on it now, it's just like such a like superficial analogy, but I'm gonna give it to you anyways. She said, she was very materialistic, but hear me out. She was like, you don't want to be this like common bag you can get at like, I don't know, TJ Maxx. Okay, you want to be the bag that you can, like, that is untouchable, that you have to work for. You can't just go and pick up a Chanel bag at TJ Maxx or at Gabe's. Okay, you have to work for it, and once you get it, you appreciate it and you value it, and you see its quality and its value when you have worked hard for it. That's what you have to be. You have to be a Birkin bag, okay? You have to be an Hermes bag. Wait, Hermes is Birkin. That was really bad on my part. Sorry, guys. Wow, that guy's... I don't know what he's doing, but he's cute. Anyways, I'm getting distracted by my window. You have to be the bag that men have to work for, metaphorically. Okay? It just like, it brings more value to you as a person, because if you're just out here like going for the bare minimum, you're going to get bare minimum guys, and they're going to give you bare minimum effort. It's as easy as that. Um, Another point for this step, and to not kind of get walked on in appreciating and valuing your independence, is just like constantly, like I mentioned in the beginning, is constantly reminding yourself, like, I like you and I enjoy your presence, but I do not need you. You should not need anyone, okay? That's why being being comfortable with being alone is crucial, because it's like you're allowed to love someone. You're allowed to love being with them, but you should never need someone unless you're like a baby or you're an old person and you need someone to like help you take care of you. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking like in a relationship, and like you shouldn't need someone's presence to make you happy. You should be happy on your own. Because if you rely on other people, they're just going to constantly disappoint you. And that's exhausting. That's exhausting, and it's a waste of time. Again, I'm going to read this again because I have it written down here. Men want what they can't have. They really do. And I know this to be a fact. No one can prove me wrong, because time and time again, I've been proved right. Men want what they can't have. So, if you're stingy with your time, oh, that's a very, very scary man outside my window right now. Oh, I thought he was going to come up to my window. Anyways, this is quite the day to be filming in front of my window. But anyways, if you're stingy with your time and your availability, it might make them want you even more, because it shows that you have your own life and your own interests and your own tasks and your own hobbies. And they're like, huh, like, what's she doing? What's she up to? It's like a little mystery. It's like a little murder mystery for them to solve. There have been so many times where I've liked a guy and all I want to do is ask him to hang out every day. But that can easily be a turnoff for guys. And it also just isn't healthy for you to just constantly want to hang out with him every day. You need to hang out with your friends. You need to hang out with yourself. They want to have their bro time. They want to have their me time, their dude time. So you got to give it to them. And then whenever, every time they ask to hang out, you don't need to say yes every single time. I wish I could talk to like my 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-old self and say that. Because it would have saved me a lot of therapy sessions. So if you're having the urge to like ask a guy to hang out, and it's like the 5th time you've asked him to hang out, try and like say, okay, you know what? Instead of doing that, I'm going to clean my room, because I've been meaning to for the past like 2 weeks. Or hang out with your friends that you haven't hung out with in a minute. Text them, see what they're up to. And if they're busy, then like do one of your tasks and hobbies that you haven't done in a while, or that you typically would do, but you've been hanging out with this dude for so long and so much that you haven't had time for it. So just do one of those, and then boom, you have plans. You're allowed to make plans with yourself. It sounds silly, but Step 4, being passive versus assertive. Big difference. Learning the difference between being assertive and being mean. For example, assertive. It is not okay for you to bail on me and blow me off without any word or heads up, or because we made plans in advance. I understand things come up, but a message is appreciated. That's you being assertive, and that's you setting your boundaries of like, hey, what you did is not okay. And I appreciate if you would never do that again, because it hurt my feelings. And like it's like you're being vulnerable, but you're also being assertive, like, hey, you did something wrong, and I'm presenting it to you, because men can be dumb, and sometimes you need to like show them on a silver platter of what they did wrong, because sometimes they don't realize they did anything wrong, and it's frustrating. And then whatever his response is how you kind of handle it from there. If he's like, oh, I didn't think I did anything wrong, or if he doesn't like immediately apologize, he's probably not going to apologize very much in the future. An example of being mean or like passive aggressive would be like, oh, so I guess you're just not coming. Do you typically blow off people you made plans with? Do you, and I'm using this as a real life example, guys. This is shit I said. And then I was reflecting on it. And I was like, I definitely shouldn't have said that. Just like kind of like saying what you mean, but saying it in a rude way or like not getting your point across, essentially, is what I mean by being passive. Setting your boundaries and saying no can feel mean, but society has taught women to say yes and be nice and nurturing and empathetic. You can be empathetic while also not letting people walk all over you. You can be empathetic and like, I don't know. It's hard to do because especially if you have anxiety, you're going to start overthinking and overthinking and overthinking about what your actions are doing to other people. Obviously, you have to kind of like think about what you say. Is this going to hurt other people's feelings? Like you have to think before you speak, which men typically don't do. But that's besides the point. I'm saying for yourself, ladies, you know, making sure you're like what you're saying isn't going to hurt people's feelings. However, if what you're saying is what is best for you, then it doesn't matter how it affects other people, because sometimes we need to be selfish, and that's okay. So that was a little short step, but being assertive versus passive, I've learned it saves a lot of time in terms of like getting walked on. I mean, I know that that's like kind of the whole episode is being a bitch and holding your own, but like the example of being assertive, like saying, hey, this, like basically being kind of like just blatantly saying something, but in a respectful manner, like saying your point and just like saying it straight up, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then depending on what they say is how you can kind of carry on with that relationship. If they don't take responsibility for it, then that's like, why would you continue it? Because they're not gonna, like, if it's something as, you know, I don't want to say mundane, but like if it's not like, oh, you bailed on me when we were supposed to go to our 5-year anniversary dinner, like shit like that. I don't fucking know, but things like that where it's like not as huge. I want to say, I hate to like belittle it, but you guys know what I'm getting at. And number 5, stop being overly apologetic. I think that saying sorry is very necessary in relationships and just in general. But as for being a woman for 22 years, I have picked up a couple of things that we women do. We say sorry like in extreme amount. For example, even things such as like even small things, like you're in a grocery store and you know someone bumps into you, and this has happened to me so many times. Someone bumps into you whenever you're clearly like not in the wrong. I still go, oh, I'm sorry. Or like I'll bump into someone and it's clearly my fault, and the other woman's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, babe, why are you sorry? Why are we constantly apologizing? I don't understand. Now, if you hurt someone's feelings or you hurt someone physically or whatever, yeah, you say you're sorry and you apologize and you mean it. I don't know what's going on. Oh, I had a Celsius earlier. That's probably why I'm burping so much. Sorry, guys. It's right in your ears. I gave a little example. But before I give my example, it's like we as women are programmed to apologize for everything. And I'm still in the process of like rewiring and deprogramming my brain of like internalized misogyny and apologizing everything and just like thinking that men are the end all be all of a woman's existence, which is not the truth. And we're also programmed to apologize for like even other people's mess ups. So for example, your date's late for dinner and they don't give you a heads up, and when they get there they say, sorry I'm late, and you say, it's okay, I'm sorry, I should have texted you to check in on you. Like, that's some shit I would do, like just subconsciously and without even thinking about it. I'd be like, oh sorry, I should have texted you to see like where you were at. Why am I apologizing? I got here on time and they're the one that's late. Why am I saying, oh sorry, I should have checked in on you to make sure you were okay? No, that's not. They were like 45 minutes late. That's not your fault, babe. Do not apologize. And it's just like constantly like checking yourself whenever you say sorry. That's important, because it's like, okay, why did I say that? It's actually not okay. But like, be like, okay, thank you for apologizing. Like, that's the correct response, essentially. We always feel responsible for other people, and it often goes unnoticed, especially in situations like that. Another example, say you're in a fight with your significant other because they didn't do the laundry, and this is like the 50th time they've mentioned it. He starts pointing the finger at you and begins blaming you. First, that's extremely unhealthy behavior. But secondly, if you're going to be a bitch, you have to know that that behavior is unhealthy and toxic, and understand that it isn't your fault, and they're just deflecting from their own guilt of what they did or didn't do. This is where step one comes in, knowing your worth, and that this is continuous unhealthy behavior, and it's not something you're willing to put up with. You shouldn't put up with that kind of behavior. And to sum up all of it, specifically whenever a guy in this situation is overreacting or being mean to you, or if your feelings are hurt, you're not overreacting, you're not crazy, you're not being mean, you're just sticking up for yourself. So next time, whenever your feelings are hurt and he did something wrong, you're not overreacting and you're not being mean. If your feelings are hurt because he hurt your feelings, then that's valid. And if you're saying, that's not okay, I didn't appreciate you standing me up, I didn't appreciate you yelling at me for something that's clearly not my fault, I'd appreciate it if you didn't do that ever again. Like, that's not being mean. That's just setting your boundary, and that's just you sticking up for yourself. And that's it, period. Point blank, period. That's all it is. And that's valid, and that's like what you should be doing. And that's how to be a bitch. So, yeah, hopefully you guys take this. I highly recommend reading the Why Men Love Bitches, because she interviews a lot of men of all different classes and like backgrounds and like point of views and whatever. Like, she interviews so many guys, and it's a slightly different take of what I just talked about. It kind of focuses more on like maybe like the mentality of when you're in a relationship. This advice was kind of like how you should stay in check when you're like maybe in a relationship, or like how to prevent things from happening, essentially. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you like this kind of stuff, I don't know. I guess if you're watching on YouTube, give it a thumbs up. Which, speaking of, you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel. And you can follow the pod on whatever you're listening to, like on whatever streaming platform you're using right now. You can rate it if you're feeling it. Follow me on Instagram at Argue with the Wall, but the with is a W. And I think that's about it. So Happy New Year. I wish you all the best, and keep being bitchy. Talk to you guys next week. Bye.